And I think they're going to want to ensure that individuals that are granted permanent status in the United Kingdom have no criminal convictions. So, and then we have the current government that have said, well, we're going to make some changes, and they're threatening to increase it to 10 years. One of the things I find with clients is they have a lot of fear. They're not quite sure what's going to happen, whether they're going to be sent home, or whether they'll ever be given status. So there is, I think it would be a bit harsh. And as I say, when I started, it was 1 year. Yeah. So it's gone we've travelled a long way. In the 1980s, we had the British Nationality Act, which essentially stopped people like the current leader of the Conservative Party. Yeah. One, I think obviously Brexit was a disaster. People were told, they were lied to, serially, that everything was going to be fantastic, if only we could get rid of the EU. And we've got rid of it, and all of a sudden people find that they can't travel as easily, they have to queue, that they can't stay in their home in Spain as long as that they want to. And then there's also the hospitality sector and other places have found that they can't get staff. Say if you're an Italian and you think, I'll spend a couple of years in England, you come to the United Kingdom, get a job working in a hotel, a restaurant, bar, and go back afterwards, and all good. All of a sudden that market of labour has gone.
Welcome back to TPX. It's been a while. We were in the studio and we talked about immigration in the UK. Fast forward about 5 months, immigration is now hotter than it was before. There's so many new rules that have been discussed. There's so many people that have been affected. And who is better qualified to tell us more about these new rules, how it's affecting people, what is behind them, and how people out there who have been affected can adjust or how they can seek help. And in the studio today to help us with that conversation, we have a very great immigration lawyer in the name of Paul. Hello, Paul.
Good morning, good afternoon, Ao. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Fantastic. You know, I've seen your content on TikTok. He's really big on TikTok, guys. And you should go there. There are a lot of nuggets you can learn from him. So you run Imperium Chambers?
Yes, I'm a barrister, so I'm the head of Imperium Chambers. I set it up about over 10 years ago now to provide high quality immigration, client-centred work, because a lot of chambers they weren't really focused on the client's needs, because a lot of the clients that have immigration problems in particular are quite vulnerable. And so I wanted to create a safe space for them to be able to come, unburden themselves and hopefully find a solution to their problems.
Okay, that's a noble cause. So today we're going to be talking about some of the proposed immigration rules around indefinite leave to remain in the UK, which is a big thing. Then the skilled workers visa, the new threshold when it comes to salary, and also the over 140 occupations that have been taken off the list, eligible for sponsorship. So we're going to talk about these rules and what the government is trying to get with this introduction, if eventually it flies. So as we know, two major political parties that we will mention their names, or we can, they want to increase the number of years that you are eligible to settle in the UK from 5 years to 10 years. And then one other political party who is going the extreme totally wants to eradicate indefinite leave to remain in the UK and introduce whatever. So can you shed more lights on that for us, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think the starting point is, what is indefinite leave to remain? Now, indefinite leave to remain entitles an individual to remain in the United Kingdom for the rest of their life, if they so wish. It's a big step forward from having a time-limited period of leave, such as 1 year, 2 years. People are usually able to access benefits. They have pretty much most of the rights as a British citizen, save for the fact that if they leave the United Kingdom for more than 2 years and don't come back, they can lose, or they will lose, their indefinite leave to remain. Now, historically, indefinite leave to remain would be given after a very short probationary period. If it was in the case of someone that married a British citizen, when I started doing this work, there was a 1-year probationary period, and then it was increased to 2 years, and then 5 years, which is where we are now.
Yes.
Now, that not only applies to spouses or partners, it also applies to, amongst other things, skilled workers, which is obviously, there's a huge amount in the country, and I think we'll be covering that.
Yes.
Now, for some reason, people are fixated upon changing the indefinite leave to remain. And as you've mentioned, there's one party that kicked it all off by saying, we're not going to give indefinite leave to remain to a cohort of people, and we're going to take the entire status away from millions of people, and then they will have to apply every 5 years, and they'll be given a 5-year permit. Then we have I would say more central, but they're probably not that more central. They've said, no, we're going to increase it to 10 years. And then we have the current government that have said, well, we're going to make some changes. And they're threatening to increase it to 10 years. Whether they do that or not, and we can talk about the merits of that, but what I think they will be doing is they'll probably be increasing the English language requirement, which is quite low at the moment.
Yes.
It's the level is called B1, which is lower intermediate, or I think GCSE level English, and it is quite low. And I think they're going to want to ensure that individuals that are granted permanent status in the United Kingdom have no criminal convictions. So the current government's proposals, increasing the English language requirement, making sure that individuals who want to apply don't have any convictions, are probably quite fair.
Yeah.
If they increase it to 10 years, and if we talk about that, 10 years, first question is, does it apply to people that are already in the United Kingdom? So I come to the United Kingdom and I'm working as a doctor or a nurse, and I think, well, I'm 3 years into it, and in 2 years I'll have my indefinite leave to remain. Then potentially I can apply to become a British citizen, and all of a sudden they're facing another 7-year wait. In law, the Home Office or the government could try that, but the court would be very unhappy with it.
Yep.
Because the court doesn't like what's called retrospective legislation.
Application, yeah.
The court likes the position to be that people know where they are. They know where they stand. It's not impossible that could happen, but I think that there would be a legal kickback, and I think there would be a popular kickback against it from the majority of people that are quite sensible in this country. For new people, if the Home Office were to say, well, if you're coming as a skilled worker in a month's time, you'll have to wait 10 years, I think that would be harsh, but I think the courts would not interfere with that. They would say, well, if you didn't like it, you could have gone to Canada, you could have gone to Australia. And given the weather at the moment, I'd probably go to Canada or Australia, especially Australia. So I think that the toughening up the English language requirements is a great idea, and I think whether they extend it, I don't think extending it to 10 years would be fair for a lot of people. It would increase a lot of uncertainty. One of the things I find with clients is they have a lot of fear. They're not quite sure what's going to happen, whether they're going to be sent home, or whether they'll ever be given status. So there is, I think it would be a bit harsh. And as I say, when I started, it was 1 year.
Yeah.
So it's gone we've travelled a long way.
Absolutely.
So that's the current government. The party that's kicked off this debate wants to remove indefinite leave to remain. Curiously, they don't want to remove it for European Union nationals.
Just non-EU nationals.
Yeah, now, without treading on too many people's toes, we, prior to Brexit, it was, that's fantastic, we can get rid of the European Union migrants and we can open it up to the Commonwealth, where we have all these fantastic ties and a historical partnership, and it would be better to have people that share British values through the UK's history.
Yeah.
And not only the Commonwealth, but a large number of people from the Commonwealth took the Home Office and the UK up on that. Having done that, and obviously these people maybe don't look the same as an EU national.
Yep.
Now a certain party is saying, oh no, it's got nothing to do with their colour, but we just don't want them having permanent status. But the EU nationals, they can keep it.
Yes.
And that, for me, stinks.
You know, funny enough, I didn't even know they're not considering the EU nationals in that 10 years route. But one thing that you said that's quite interesting is I heard the leader of that party, Nigel, I'll mention his name, Nigel Farage, where he said, I don't like it when I'm on the train and people are speaking foreign languages. And his wife is German. So you're saying when she's speaking with her friends who's come to visit, what do you think about that? And he said it's different. And then that brings me to some of the current immigration rules in the UK. So we have a bilateral relationship with New Zealand, with Australia. I don't know any other, there will be more countries where their youth can come to this country and spend a year to work with limited immigration requirements. The same reciprocal thing we have with their country as well. So, and they are proposing the same thing, even though people are shouting about immigration and immigrants being too many in the UK. They are proposing to allow youth from the EU to come into the UK. So does it feel to you as an immigration lawyer that these rules are not fair to everyone? It seems like it's probably people of certain race or color that are affected the most.
I think you're right. I mean, the UK has always, immigration law has always favoured the white Commonwealth, whether that be Canada, Australia or New Zealand.
Yes.
And previously, I think South Africa, but perhaps not so. So there has been a bias. And you're right that there's this discussion about youth mobility scheme. My feelings on that are twofold. One, I think obviously Brexit was a disaster. People were told, they were lied to, serially, that everything was going to be fantastic. If only we could get rid of the EU. And we've got rid of it. And all of a sudden, people find that they can't travel as easily. They have to queue, that they can't stay in their home in Spain as long as that they want to. And then there's also the hospitality sector and other places have found that they can't get staff. Say if you're an Italian and you think, I'll spend a couple of years in England, you come to the United Kingdom, get a job working in a hotel, a restaurant, a bar, then go back afterwards, and all good. All of a sudden, that market of labour has gone. So youth mobility would be good. It would go both ways because it would provide UK nationals with an opportunity to experience life in the UK. Previously, a lot of people go and work in the summer. They go to Greek island or Spain or amongst other places, and they get an experience of European culture. And historically, and this is a personal thing, I think the closer we are to Europe, the better. It's not more than about less than 120 years ago. Within that period, we had a war, the First World War, where we were fighting mainly within Europe.
Europe, yeah.
Millions of people died. Millions of people from France, Germany, the UK, Italy, Austria. And that was a tragedy. And then 20 years later, it was repeated and made far worse in the Second World War. And since then, we haven't had any wars.
Except Russia and Ukraine.
Towards the east of the European bloc.
Yeah.
But Central Europe, the main drivers would be the Austrians, the Spanish, the French, the Germans, and us
the UK.
would all have a good old squabble up and fight with consequences of lots of massive tragedy. That hasn't happened. And France and Germany, which used to be at each other's throats from 1870, 14 and 39, work well together. So I think we are better off being more closely aligned with our European neighbours rather than falling into nationalism and because I think the nationalism is quite evil in that regard, the nation state, and I am because I'm not, I'm great because I've got fantastic culture, I've got a lovely society, I'm great because I'm not you.
Yeah.
And that I think is dangerous. So there's that part of it, so I'm in favour of it. The other part is an immigration law, I think, that it's inherently racist. And it's a view that I have that immigration rules are essentially, and the immigration acts, are essentially racist. I studied them at university, which like an eternity ago, and the first immigration laws came in and they were targeting Chinese people that used to arrive to work in the UK. And if one looks at the immigration laws that have been passed, they've been primarily designed to stop people, whether they were Chinese, whether they were people fleeing the Nazis, which I don't think people talk about very much, that we weren't opening our door to the Jewish refugees prior to the Second World War. It was very difficult. Afterwards, we had there was East African Asians when they had their problems.
Yeah, they with Mobutu Sese Seko and all of those guys, I think.
And with all the with the
Idi Amin.
Idi Amin,
Yeah.
who told the East African Asians who were driving the country forward, they had 48 hours to leave. And I recall that. And then there was, at this stage, the Commonwealth was a bit more profound or stronger, and people previously had a better immigration status, or it used to be called citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies, and that would entitle people to come and travel. And then more and more acts of Parliament cut down the rights of those people to travel. In the 1980s, we had the British Nationality Act, which essentially stopped people like the current leader of the Conservative Party.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to be associated with Nigeria, by the way?
And it's always a bit rich for me that you have somebody whose parents perfectly lawfully took advantage, and advantage is a word that can be used in a number of scenarios, took advantage to fly in their pregnant
to have her, and then went back.
Have the child in the United Kingdom, and then go home, have I wish and I hope a very happy childhood.
Yes.
And then when it's time to move on, to come back to the United Kingdom because they were born prior to the 31st of January 1983 with a British passport. And I think that happened to one of her siblings as well. So they obviously, I'm not sure they got a discounted ticket for coming back, but they did it twice.
Yes.
And then I remember Thatcher saying, well, this is being, and I think the Conservatives said, this was being abused. Now, if it was being abused, then she's benefited from that abuse.
Yeah, it was being abused because she didn't have any reason to be here. The parents, they basically came here, had her, and they went back home. Like a lot of people do in America. They go, they can afford to have the baby in America. They go in there, have the baby with the American passport and fly back home.
And then she's taken advantage of it and came over here. And then all of a sudden she wants nothing to do with Nigeria because she's not Nigerian, she's British.
Yeah.
And I've never met her. I've got no understanding. But I'm always reminded of the saying that says, give me a child till 7 and I'll give you a Catholic for life. So maybe she didn't pick up any of the culture, which would be very sad in the 16 years she spent in Nigeria.
Actually, because when she wanted to go into Parliament in London for the first time, she actually leveraged on the Nigerian community. There are evidence on Facebook where she was saying to the Nigerian community, like directly to them, come vote for me. And now she's the leader of the Conservative. She wants to dissociate herself from it.
I think she even had a website which had something to do, which promoted the same thing, that she would be the voice of the Nigerians in the United Kingdom.
Absolutely.
And now all of a sudden it's like, nothing to do with me. But that's sad. So that was a big change in the 1981 Act. Then we had the acts in 1999, 2002, and they've carried on, and they've always been more and more restrictive, whether they're increasing the time for indefinite leave to remain. They're removing the ability for certain institutions to sponsor students, whether they're preventing visitors from switching into other categories, whether they are certifying certain countries as being safe.
Yeah.
All of these are restrictive. And the vast majority of the people that come from, that migrate to the United Kingdom, tend to not be the same colour as me. Some of them, that's the Ukrainians and what have you, and some of the people from the Balkans obviously are, but the vast majority of migration to the United Kingdom, I would say, they're not white.
Yeah, because migration will always be from, most of the time, from a lower economic area, because a lot of people are economic migrants, to the higher economic area, which United Kingdom. And also, United Kingdom colonized almost half of the world. So people speak English. Where would they go? They won't go to France.
Well, I mean, I think that point's worth developing, because at the height of the British Empire, I think in 1919 or 1921, when it did cover a huge amount of the world's surface, people were being taught English. They were told that the the UK system was the best system. Talk to play English games,
Yes.
some of them that
Cricket.
they play better than us now. So we have a system where we've gone out and told everyone the UK is the best country in the world. And then we have an empire which creates citizenship, almost akin to the Roman Empire, where if you're wherever you're born within the Roman Empire, you're Roman. So I'm British, but I'm British and Indian, and various people have taken up on that, such as, for example, Gandhi and what have you would come over here and study, and there were lots of, I think they were prohibited by finances, but a lot of people who came from affluent backgrounds would come to the United Kingdom
to study, yes,
because they were entitled to. They were British.
Absolutely.
And then progressively, people are, well, okay, we've taken everything from you. I know it's a point that people discuss, but we've had the benefits of our empire, but we don't really want to pay the price, even though we need to pay the price because we have a declining birth rate.
Yes.
British people are not producing enough small British people. So in order for the country to carry on growing or to at least remain the same, it needs people. And since we've shut the door on our European friends, it makes sense to me, and I think this was one of the selling points of Brexit, that we could turn to the Commonwealth, invite our old friends over.
Yeah, which Boris did. That takes us to the Boris wave. So a lot of the reason behind this ILR, like you said, is that when people that have migrated into the UK, they get the ILR, then they are able to claim benefit. And the argument of the political class right now is the Boris wave. So people that we ran to when there was COVID and everybody were too scared to work in the care homes because people were dying in their numbers. People were too scared to work in the hospitals because people were dying in their numbers. People were too scared to go into the factories. So we asked these people from abroad, we opened the care visa route that was never there before, so that people can come into the UK and work these sectors that everybody were too scared not to. Now it's time for them to say, okay, we've worked our time. It's 5 years. We've done our time. Now we need a reward to have indefinite leave to remain, be British one day. Then the people are saying no. What do you think about this?
I think that this seems to me nothing more than racism dressed up into some sort of benefits. Now, so if we get rid of these people, then we'll save money on the benefit system. And I think that Nigel Farage said, we're going to save over £200 billion if we do this. And then he was told not to say that figure. And when he was challenged, he said, it must be more. And then he's moved away from that. And he's now apparently become fiscally responsible. And we're going to have to act like every other politician. What do I think of this? I think it's offensive. The starting point, as I say, Brexit. So we no longer have the ability to recruit easily nursing staff. You are right, the healthcare visa was opened up. It provided for people to be able to come to the United Kingdom and work in the healthcare sector, both the NHS and privately. It's also worth bearing in mind that there's still probably over 100 to 200,000 vacancies in that sector.
Yes.
And that means that the people that are living in the United Kingdom are often struggling. If one's been to a hospital or a care home, there are not enough staff. And you're right, there were a lot of people that came from West Africa, a lot of people that came from Asia to do the jobs. And they are not white. And it's easy to recognise them. If you said, we don't want any more Polish people, it'd be hard-pressed to identify who they are.
Until they speak.
And then if they've been here for a while, as some of my clients have, they've picked up regional accents. And you couldn't, unless it's because their name has 17 Zs in it and you can't pronounce it, you wouldn't know where they're from.
Absolutely.
But if someone's from the Philippines, you can probably spot them.
Or from Nigeria.
Or from Nigeria. So you think, this person, you probably get it right. Now, this means that these individuals, and I think they were talking about preventing some 700,000 people. And
their families. Because the argument is they brought their families.
We'll talk about the families, but they want to prevent the 700,000 people that would be entitled to indefinite leave to remain by 2030 having it. Now, if they came to the United Kingdom on the basis that we will leave our home, we will work here, and at the time we will bring our family here. They will take their children from the school, from their life, and you go, you're going to come to the UK. This is going to be your home.
Some of them had their kids here as well.
And you're right. People come over with their husband. They arrive. They have children. They're doing a job that nobody else was able to do, which is why they've come over. And then you're saying, but we're not going to let you stay here permanently. That reduces people to. It treats them as if they're commodities. We'll use you and get rid of you, like a tissue. And that's offensive. And because of the Brexit, COVID, and the fact that the people are easily identifiable, that for me is offensive. It's not. I don't think it's to use to co-opt their expression. It's not very British. It's not very. It's not that sense of fair play. And the government actually has moved into that slightly because for over a year now, people on the healthcare route can't bring their dependents. Now, after 5 years of working here at the moment, they would qualify for indefinite leave to remain. Then they could bring their dependents. And I find that offensive because you can come here and look after my old man. You can look after my children. But you can't bring your own kids. Mm-hmm. And now we're saying, well, you can come over here and work for an indefinite period of time. You're never going to get your indefinite leave to remain.
You'll never be able to bring your family.
And then when you've had enough, you can go back. And if you've not seen people face to face, as I have, that have gone through a prolonged period of separation, it's easy to turn around and say, oh, well, it's their choice. And that's quite harsh. And I've seen people that haven't seen their families for 10 or 15 years, and it's heartbreaking. And so the idea that the UK in the 21st century as a liberal democracy is going to either separate families or commoditize people and say, well, you have no real inherent value to the United Kingdom, so we will use you, and when we've got enough out of you, we'll throw you away. I don't think it's good economically as well as morally.
Yeah. Because
people will go to other countries where they're valued.
Absolutely.
So I'm a Filipino nurse.
And Canada has introduced the care visa route that they didn't have before. And a lot of the care workers here are already going to Canada.
And in Canada, they'll have a better quality of life, better wages, and they'll be welcomed.
Absolutely.
And so if we were having this conversation in Lagos and you said, should we go to the UK or should we go to Canada?
No one in their right senses comes to the UK. It's only because Canada can work, Australia can work, US can work. We'll try UK.
And you'd be thinking maybe there's a good community in London, so it won't be such a dislocation. And then it will be, but the weather's not very nice. We're not very welcome. There's a lot of
high taxes,
very high taxes. Plus, there's anybody. If we were having this conversation, we'd be looking at our social media or news feed, and we'd be reading, they don't want us.
Absolutely.
If we were we were married, and I'd be saying, well, okay, well, I'll go and you look after the kids. Or alternatively, you say, well, what about that Australia thing? The weather's nicer, the money's better, and we can all go.
Yeah.
Bit further, and they'll let us stay.
They'll bring our family, and then we can stay.
So I think economically, people will vote with their feet. And the people that are coming here, and I think this is often overlooked, the people on the care visa that come here are quite generally, especially after the skilled worker changes, qualified nurses or doctors. And we don't have enough. We're not training enough. The people that qualify in the UK, quite a lot of them go through their training and they think, do you know what? I'm not going to work in St George's Hospital. That's a fantastic hospital. I live close to it, and the service is really good. But they might say it's very stressful. And now I'm recognised. I can earn 3 times that money in Australia.
Absolutely.
And I've just qualified. I'll go there. And so there's a problem with retention of UK trained staff, whether that's nurses or doctors, and the incentives are not to be here. So there is I think that the economic model and the social model doesn't really work out long term. As I said, I went passing through St George's a while ago, and as I was walking down the corridor, I thought, I imagined a world where Nigel Farage had his way, and how many people
and ship
would be
everybody
there?
out of
thinking those people, they're definitely Polish. They wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
That lady looks like she's potentially from Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And those ladies look like they're from Africa. And I thought, if they were all gone, it'd be very quiet. It would be like some post-apocalyptic world where everybody's vanished.
Absolutely.
And then I got there, and then I met a couple of UK-trained nurses and a doctor. But I thought they would be very, very rushed off their feet, and it would not function.
Yeah.
So I think it's a short-termist popular policy. Well, we won't let them stay, or we'll extend their visas. We can't bring their relatives. And it's all going to be okay, because I think it won't be. The staff shortages will increase. I think on balance, I must say something, though, and this is a criticism directly of the government.
Yeah.
The government, when they introduced the healthcare visa, did so without proper oversight. Essentially, anybody could, what should we have? Should we have a cappuccino, or should we get a sponsor license?
Yeah.
I'll have both.
But we have both, yeah. It was easy to get.
And then it's like, well, now 2 sugars, I'll issue 15 certificates of sponsorship. And then what then happens, because there are quite a lot of criminals that that are attracted to this, and they exploit the people from lower income
Who paid
countries.
a lot of money to get those licenses and to come to the UK.
So
and they came here, no jobs for them.
No jobs, and I see the consequences of that, and it's tragic. So the government's, because of their lack of oversight, regulation, or enforcement.
But that's Boris. No oversight. He just, sorry, Boris, but I thought you were just a buffoon, but we'll go on.
I think, sadly, he's far worse than that. I mean, I think at one point there were like 41 inspectors for, there was, I think, one inspector for 1,600 licenses. And so it was being
every day
massively
in a year,
abused.
they would not have even covered 10th of.
And the estimation, like one of the ones I read, said about 25% of the people that have come in on that route, it was not genuine. And so, as you say, that the human cost to that is that people come here, they spend a lot of money, they pay an agent, they come to the United Kingdom, they don't have any work, and then they don't know what to do. Legally, they should just go home and make a complaint. But obviously, I can understand the human.
They've operated their lives. So that money they raised, because you're absolutely right. Some of these licenses cost people £10,000. And so I know a lot of people hearing this will say, if somebody could raise £10,000 in their home country, why do they need to be here? They could make a living out of it. But what a lot of people do not understand in some of these home countries, there's massive insecurity. There's kidnapping. There is assassination. There's a lot of social vices. They want a better life for themselves, right? And they've sold everything. They've even borrowed. They've gone to take money from other people and promise that they'll pay back because they've been assured they will have a care job. And they came to the UK. The person that brought them in knew fully well there was no job. And now they're here. They're struggling to survive. So from your experience, what's next for these people? Because I heard the Home Office sends them a letter after they've terminated the license of the person that brought them to the UK and give them 60 days.
For them, and what I would say to anyone that fell into that category, it is vital that the person, the moment they find out that the job is not genuine, that they are on there's a countdown to them getting what we would call a 60-day letter, curtailment of their visa. If they've had the qualifications to get the job, there are companies, and I know a few, that are, the word exploiting is wrong, they are taking advantage of the fact that there are lots of, lawfully, and there's nothing wrong with this, that they're taking advantage of the fact that there's a pool of labour of people that have been caught out. So what I would suggest to somebody, I would urge them, that if they find out that the job is not what they thought it was, rather than getting a job or doing something else or burying their head in the sand.
Which is against their visa, because they have to do the job you're sponsored in, even if it's at 20 hours.
But what I tend to find happens is that people come here, they find that the job's not genuine. The Home Office, because of their incompetence or inability to get on top of it, do not get round to cancelling the visa or curtailing the visa for anything from, it could be a period of over a year, year and a half. It can be a long time. the person then, it appears to me, having gone through the shock of the job's not genuine, takes up some other form of employment, and then they get used to living life on a day-to-day. That if anyone stops them, I've got my visa, I could travel, I could do whatever I wish to do. And then they get used to this. And then when they get the 60-day letter, the curtailment,
Start panicking.
Then they start panicking, and then they struggle to find work. Now, if I would urge anyone that if they find that the employer is not as they say they are, they should take advantage of their skill set, find another sponsor as quickly as they can. Not just, oh, well, nothing's happened, because it will happen. And I see a lot of people across my desk that have been caught out. They've got a week before their visa expires, and they've been in the country for a year and a half. And there's nothing that can be done. Because they said, well, and I feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
But what can they do?
Do you think it's incompetence on the part of the Home Office, or they're being human, understanding that these people, let's give them time?
No, it's incompetence. That the Home Office if the Home Office can reduce the number of people and they can shut down quickly, then they would do it, because then they can trump it. Oh, our enforcement team are fantastic. We've stopped all of these people. I think it's just the fact that it takes the Home Office a while to get through and actually carry out the enforcement visits.
Okay.
So I would say for any individual that has had that happen to them, they need to act promptly. If they're not going to go home, or understand why they don't want to, then they need to take steps, and this is really important, because if they've done nothing for a year and a half, and then the Home Office issue them with the curtailment letter, and then they say, oh, but I was deceived, I was robbed. Anybody looking objectively will say, well, what did you do? If someone took £10,000 out of my pocket and I left it for a year and a half, and then I said, oh, but they took my money, then they would turn around and say, potentially, well,
what have you done?
Or were you complicit? Did you know that the job wasn't genuine, but it was a visa that got you into the country? So, and if you said, no, it was definitely genuine, but you've sat on your hands for it. And some people 2 years. And I look at them, I'm thinking, okay. And then there is that thing, and I suppose it's worth saying that in the UK, generally, in fact, I think across the board, you don't pay to get a job. Now, I know culturally in some countries you do pay to get to start the work. But if anyone in the UK says, oh, you can come and work for me, but you need to pay me money, it's not genuine. I mean, if I was to turn around to people that have worked for me over the years and said, I'll give you a fantastic job, but you pay me first, they would be laughing.
Yeah, what kind of job is that? Why would if it's fantastic, why do I need to pay you? You should pay me so that you can bring me in.
I don't go to Starbucks and say, and Starbucks say, well, can you give me £3,000 and I'll let you make coffee? People are being there. Starbucks wouldn't have a very good business. But sadly, given the differences in cultures, and then people, as you say, that are perhaps economically disadvantaged, get spun that, oh, well, I've just sorted all of this out, and that's the way it works.
Absolutely.
And then they turn up in the UK and they're saying, well, I paid £20,000 for a job, and everyone's disbelieving. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, because people don't understand it. And a lot of things about, and I was going to say, the rhetorics around immigration right now, it's not new. You know, I've been in this country since 2009, and Theresa May, we're going to reduce immigration to tens of thousands, which never happened. And what a lot of people don't realize is, just like you've articulated here, is the UK need immigration. They need migrants, because we're not having enough kids to take on the jobs. So why do you think this rhetoric is so much right now? Is it because politicians just want to win elections, or social media? What do you think?
I think it's a reflection of the times we find ourselves in that the UK faces quite large fundamental problems, and I think that if I was a politician, I'm thinking, well, we have problems with the NHS, we have a problem with paying for the money that was spent in COVID, we have problems with education, the buildings, there's a shortage of it. These are not easily resolvable. The country is not growing hugely economically. We're not in a an economic boom across
because
the world.
they're taxing everybody too much, so people stop spending money.
But the world's not we're not in the 1980s or part of the 90s where the economies of all of the world and America are growing massively. So that following Thatcher's idea, which you can reduce the tax level, people earn more, pay more. The growth is more or less stationary. Inflation is there. There are huge problems. And rather than saying, look, we need to actually take stock of where the country's at and what sort of country we want to live in, and following on from that taking stock, it's either, well, we'll privatise the NHS, which I don't agree with, or we're going to need to fund it properly. And the only way you're going to fund it properly is either grow the economy, which you're not, you're
Or
going to
stop
struggle
spending
to do,
too much on welfare.
or cutting it,
Yes.
and that's politically not very attractive, and that's just going to make the problems worse because there's been a lack of investment over the last 14 or 15 years. Or let's just talk about the coloured people, because they're the reason of the problem. And then when we're not talking about the coloured people, let's talk about the asylum seekers. And I'm thinking, okay, so, and this is another, I'd say it's a Brexit bonus.
Yeah.
Because before Brexit, if you see them coming over on a small boat, and I know this didn't happen all the time, but the UK, being a member of the EU, could send them back. After Brexit, which was negotiated with no, well, obviously the EU weren't prepared to tie themselves to something which would not benefit them, we ended up being responsible. So for the French, every time they leave France and they wave them goodbye, they know they're not coming back.
Yeah.
And the people smugglers, like the criminals with the healthcare,